Welcome to Wisdom on the Front Porch. Subscribe, ring the bell, like, and share the wisdom. Pull up a chair and join us with today's guest.
Hi, welcome to another great episode of Wisdom on the Front Porch. And today we're sitting on Rich's front porch. What a beautiful porch he has back there with the water and the chairs. And I just thank you so much for being here today, Rich.
Oh, I'm really looking forward to it. Thanks for having me.
Oh, yeah. So I want to hear about this common sense attitude that you have and developing leaders. What does it mean to develop a leader?
Small businesses, which I've been a part of for 45 years, all have the same problem. You start out with two or three people, you reach a point where you can't do everything anymore, and it's time to bring in a layer of leadership. And your choice is, do you go outside and find a trained leader, bring them into your chaotic small business culture, and frustrate the heck out of them? Or do you take one of your top employees and move them into a leadership role for which they may not be prepared? I've faced that many times over my career. I finally decided when I had a little extra time on my hands, I was going to do something about it. And I didn't really want to sell my companies. Uh, so I decided that if I could train the leaders from my existing employees and spend, 3 years doing that, that maybe one day I'd be able to retire. It all worked out. I am now retired and marketing the book that I wrote as a part of that training course.
Oh, awesome. What's the name of your book?
Growing Your Own, and the subtitle is Common Sense Advice for Developing Leaders in a Small Business. And
Yeah.
it truly is. I mean, there's a million, maybe more than a million leadership books out there, and they all have appeal. But when I began putting a training course together in our small company, I looked for books to help me, and I do quite a bit of reading, so that was natural for me. The
Right.
application of most leadership books to small business is just not very clear. And then in small business, in my case, I was training tradespeople, people who had come in out of the field. They're not huge readers. And to expect them to go through a 400-page, well-written book on leadership, with an academic approach and lots of research, it wasn't going to happen. And so
Right.
I finally decided that this book was going to be very simple. It actually resulted from a series of blogs that I wrote to our employees on various management subjects as part of the course. At the end of 2 years, I had shared about all the information I had to share, and I read through the blogs one weekend. I had 52 of them, and I said, "This is good enough that if only for a legacy project, I'm going to publish this." And I went ahead and did that, and it now has 35 chapters. The chapters are about 2.5 pages long, but our employees continue to use the book as a reference, a daily reference. When they run up against management issues or leadership issues, they turn to the book and pull out chapter 14 and say, "What did Rich write about this?" And then it's very helpful to them. It's intentionally written for inexperienced leaders. I've been pleased that some of my friends who are very experienced leaders in my age group have read the book and say, I probably didn't learn anything new, but I was sure reminded of some things that I used to do that I should still be doing. So that's the kind of book that it is.
Oh, this is really great. I love your book. I love that they say, well, what would Rich do? And your book is short. So let's get into the entrepreneurs because that's what we're giving as tools. This book is a good tool, but let's give them some advice. Let's say they've got from zero to maybe to 8 to 10 employees,
Okay.
and they know that they need to do something different. So what's a good first start?
That if you were to ask what was the problem in 100 different organizations, the answer is always communication. And so the
Yes,
book starts out with several chapters about communication. That's because communication is at the root of most business problems. And I see things as very simple. And so I see communication as simple. I see communication as basically as a circle. You start with what it is you wish to communicate. You verify with your listener that they heard what you were attempting to communicate. You establish what is going to come out of the conversation. Is there action that is going to be required? You agree on what the action will look like and how long it will take. You check in during the process and see how things are going. Have they run up against some obstacles? And then ultimately, the circle is completed when you follow up and say, okay, did we did we successfully complete the circle? Are we finished with that communication? Do we need to communicate a little bit more? Do we need to move on to our next communication? And I have always applied that to my communication. I'm a good follow-upper. And I think following up is the key to effective communication.
I have to agree with that, because I've noticed just as I'm going into my business with the books and everything like that, not having that follow-up, things get missed. Things that you think you told people, maybe you did, but they didn't understand it correctly. So yeah, that's a really big thing. I'm going through a book right now, Baxter's Heart, and I'm trying to get it set up so I've got the communication that I can do the follow up with each person. And right now it seems overwhelming. It seems like too much, but I need to just tone myself down a little bit.
Yeah, if
All
you
of
think of
that.
every one of those, regardless of how many circles you have to complete, if you complete every one, people people begin to expect that they have to produce results if they know you're going to complete the circle every time. If you're going to come back around and say, what happened as a result of that conversation we had 2 days ago, they'll start completing more tasks.
Oh, that's awesome. I like that idea. Now, you talked about you wrote a blog for your people. That is interesting. What was the thought process going on with that?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked that because the course started out as kind of a traditional training course, and we'd meet every 4 to 6 weeks, and I'd teach for an hour. I wasn't getting the buy-in that I really wanted. I mean, the classes were fine, but there was no magic. And I'm
Yeah.
not sure why blogs occurred to me, but I thought, if I wrote something every couple of weeks and distributed it and got them thinking about it, they'd start talking about these leadership principles. Well, that didn't happen either. We had to force
Oh,
them to talk about the leadership principles. So the general manager said, I'm going to make them in our weekly management meetings. We're going to commit 20 minutes on the weeks that you write a blog, we're going to commit 20 minutes to discussing the blog openly.
oh, wow.
And that unlocked exactly what I wanted to happen. And thank goodness he suggested that they do that because once they began talking about the blogs with each other, they began sharing things that they were struggling with and how they applied the blog or how they might apply the blog. Or if they were solving a problem, somebody else in the room might say, wait a minute, that's not what Rich suggested. And they would go back and pull out a blog. I walked through the company one day and I noticed that there were white binders on several desks that I hadn't seen before. I said, what's in the binders? He said, well, we're printing out your blogs and we're keeping them in the binder so that we have the information handy. Well, that's a great compliment. I like that answer.
Yeah,
So,
that's brilliant though.
so then ultimately the blogs became the book.
Right.
I didn't sit down to write the book, but
No, but that's great. And that's where a lot of business books come from is what you've already got established. Now
mhm,
you're putting them in a form that's easy for everybody to have all at once. And we have it electronic books too, but you can also have the physical book carry around with you, look at it real quick, put marks in it, bookmark it, put tabs on it,
absolutely.
so you know exactly which one to go to. Um, so here we've got this leaders, there are these companies, CEOs, and it's like I need to figure out what to do. Now, I have a team for the Wisdom on the Front Porch magazine, and I find that running a team for a magazine, um, everybody's on board, but I had never done anything like that before. And so it's a little challenging. It was challenging to come up with things that keep everybody interested, to keep like you wanted the feedback from it and have everybody communicate with each other. Um, so yeah, the blog, but did you say it was um someone who had everybody discuss that? I mean,
The,
I think
the
that was
general
really good.
manager, who by
Yeah.
that time I had turned the company over to the general manager, and so he was holding the meetings. I was not in the
Okay.
management meetings weekly, and they committed a block of time to discuss the latest blog openly. So that, yeah,
Yeah.
it worked out really well. I really had wanted to kind of do something that caused people to begin talking about the principles, over at the coffee machine, at the water cooler. And I while that may be very natural for me because leadership is a passion of mine, that was
Right.
not the conversation that they were going to have naturally. So I'm glad he suggested it, and it really worked out great.
Yeah, that is really good. Because you want everybody on board. Everybody has their own stuff that they're doing. But that's really great. And with me, I'm working with several entrepreneurs. It's not like they're my employees or they're my vendors or
Mhm.
anything. My contractors, these are people that have full-time jobs doing what they're doing, and some of them have full-time jobs on top of what they're doing.
Mhm.
So trying to coordinate everything wasn't always the easiest thing. But it was great. I mean, we got a first year totally out, so that's good. But how do you become a leader? I mean, you there are people who have people that they lead, but they're not really a leader. So maybe talk about that aspect of
Sure,
it.
sure. And you bring up a good point because just because you own a business does not mean that you're a leader. Just because you're an entrepreneur does not mean that you're a leader. And leaders come in all shapes and sizes, fortunately. I I found that because I'm working primarily with blue collar people, that it isn't that they're not capable of leading. They never thought about being leaders, and they have a ceiling on their performance as a result of that. Now, where did that ceiling come from? That's the interesting part. Were they never taught to be a leader? Were they never exposed to good leadership? Um, are they so pleased that they're really, really good with their hands and they don't want to jeopardize learning something new? Did they have emotional trauma in their upbringing? That shuts people down and makes them into um, not very good emotional leaders. So, with the benefit of a small company is that you get to know everybody pretty well. And we started with 8 people on our leadership team. And the first thing that I did was identify, or together we identified, what ceiling was it that was going to hold them back in this leadership journey. And in a couple of cases, it was emotional. In one case, a young man who is now a significant part of our leadership team had never been exposed to leadership, never thought he was going to be a leader, and so never tried to model any of that behavior. And yet, once it was doled out to him in small doses, he had a voracious appetite, and he just kept moving forward and kept moving forward and kept moving forward. And so those kinds of things are very fun. But the answer to the question is there's something that is holding you back from being a leader. Is it your communication skills? What is it? And then let's go look at those things and let's work specifically on your personal ceiling. Um, my ceiling was that I was raised by a very authoritarian father. And when I came into the business world, I was far too authoritarian in my leadership role, and I had to make a mid-course correction to improve my leadership skills. So
Right.
we all have those ceilings. It's just a matter of identifying where yours is.
Yeah, I like that. And I like what you said, giving small bites, because everybody thinks you got to do these big leaps and bounds and you got to take in all this information. And it's what we say as entrepreneurs is one step at a time. And sometimes those steps are very small, but you've got to get those. So when you realize, you look back, well, if I'd taken a big leap, I would have really missed some important things that is going to help me keep my career going and help me go further in the future.
Yeah, and that's where I contrasted earlier my book with really well written, famous leadership books. Mine is truly one step at a time. I guess I'm not a very deep human being. I need things explained a little bit at a time. Um, Most of the people that I have trained are people that work with their hands, and they're not going to to read a big book and absorb it. That's just not how they've learned. They've never learned that way. So this book is just so simple. In 2.5 page chapters, anybody can digest that information.
Right, right. So do you have courses now? Are you teaching leadership?
I do. I condense the course into 3 2-hour sessions, and I go to companies and teach the course, and obviously leave them with a copy of the book, and then follow up monthly with Zoom calls.
Okay, great, great. Well, I know people are asking, I usually wait until the very end, but I'm going to ask now, where do they find your courses at?
The website is growingyourown.net, and the information about the course is on there, but the course itself is not. That's an
Okay,
in and at this stage, it's strictly an in-person course. I'm not sure that I can
okay,
do it online and do it effectively. The book is
right.
also available through there. And then I love to communicate directly with people. If they want to email me, I'm at rich@growingyourown.net.
Oh, very easy. That is easy. So, let's say we've got a business owner who already has a team. He's got one leader who's really effective. Maybe he's got somebody who isn't effective. Now, I've heard that sometimes people need to be moved around in the company because they may not be really great at this one job, but they may be just fantastic for this other job. How do you make that all work together?
Again, the beauty of a small business is that you know what everybody's strengths and weaknesses are. We've done that in our company. We've moved people around, and but you have before you move them around, you have to make sure that they don't have a fatal leadership flaw. There's no
Okay.
sense just moving them into a position where they're going to fail again. So when we're going to do that, we deal with the reason that we're going to make the move. We're very clear communicators. We're very direct and in a kind way, but we'll say, so these people were not following you, and that was a you problem. That wasn't a they problem.
Okay.
We're going to give you a chance to start over, but here's the steps that we want you to follow in starting over. If you don't follow these steps, you're going to lose the second group as well.
Oh, wow. Oh, wow. That's pretty amazing. Because it could be, and I like what you said, maybe there's things that are blocking you. You take care of those blocks, and then if something's still not working, maybe they just don't have the right steps that they're doing it. They're not sure what they're doing.
We
Um,
started, we started, as I said earlier, with 8 people in our training program. We wound up with 6 who completed the program. One just really didn't like the idea of being as accountable as a leader needs to be. And
okay.
then one who was a long-term employee sadly just couldn't get it. He just wasn't enough of a manager, and we wound up having to part company. It was sad, but
Yeah.
so that left us with a 75% success rate. That's pretty good for leadership training.
Good. Good. And that's another thing with businesses is if you've got, I mean, this is a business. This is not um I don't know what to compare it to, but it is a business. So sometimes you have to make the hard choices and and you've got to say, why is this not working? And it sounds like you tried. You tried to do what you could to make this employee uh be able to stay and to keep going, but at some point, maybe you have to say goodbye.
Yeah, it's sad, and I one of my faults is that I probably hang on too long in that situation. I definitely did in that particular situation, but we tried everything. I love to see people succeed, and we, in a small company, you have relationships. We have a great culture in our company
Oh,
that
good.
focuses on relationships and actually starts with relationships. So I have a relationship with everybody in the company, and to part company with any of them is always painful, but if a
Yeah.
leader isn't willing to make the hard decisions, he soon loses the people that he's leading because they know that he won't make the hard decisions, that he or she
Oh,
won't make the hard decisions. So making hard decisions is just part of the drill.
yeah. So we've got communication, we've got relationships, the uh the community within the workplace, and we've got the hard decisions. What are a couple of other things, or are there other things that
Oh,
we need to
absolutely.
look at?
Accountability is huge. And I thought I was pretty good on accountability. I read a book years ago called Extreme Ownership by two Navy SEALs. And they really raised the level of my understanding of accountability.
Okay,
In the military, when you are guilty of poor leadership, people can lose their lives.
right,
It's not a matter of losing money or screwing up your balance sheet. And when you look at accountability from that standpoint, it becomes very, very clear. And one of the points in that book is everything, everything that happens under a leader is his or her responsibility. Now, in my case, with a service company, if a technician has a bad service call, he made the mistake.
right.
But I ultimately made the mistake. We either didn't hire the right person, we didn't train them well, we didn't equip them well, but ultimately I have to take the ultimate blame for that. And then make sure that that situation never repeats itself. Um, that's a level of accountability that not everybody is comfortable signing on for.
Yeah, and I like that you take accountability for your employees. Because, like you said, if something didn't go right, when you find out what isn't right, were they having a bad day? Did they not understand the information? Did you not teach them correctly? All of those things that are going on there, because your customer is going to remember that interaction they had, and that's what they're going to share with everybody else. So you want it to be a good interaction. And if something isn't, you need to take care of it and find out what you can do to make it right. And you can't make excuses for it. Just say, we're really sorry that this happened. What can we do from this point on to make it better? To Yeah, I mean, how would you handle that? Something didn't work out right. Now you've got a really upset customer who says, I'm never going to use your company again. This was just blah, 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 and on they go. So how do you handle that part of it?
The first thing I do is take money off the table. I don't, we don't talk about refunding money. We don't talk about it costs too much or it costs too little, or how about we give you a gift card? We say, tell me in your own words, tell me where this went wrong. And now we have something we can deal with. And sometimes it's just miscommunication.
Okay.
Sometimes we made a mistake. Sometimes somebody acted badly. But until you listen to the customer and find out from their perspective what actually happened here, you can't attack a problem. And so apologies at that point, if you don't know what you're apologizing for, are a waste of
Yeah.
time. And you're going to lose that customer. We have a pretty high success rate turning things around with customers. And
Good.
I will say to them, forget the money. We're not we're not going to go there yet. I'll get to that. And you're going to be happy with the solution. But if they expected great customer service because we advertised great customer service, we didn't provide it, they don't pay. That's just a
Yeah.
very simple rule of ours. And so when most customers are so nervous by the time they get to a supervisor or manager because they expect to be treated badly at that point, they get in our situation, they get treated great
Oh,
because
that's awesome.
they're our lifeblood. And then we believe too that if we expect our employees to provide exceptional customer service, we'd better serve them exceptionally also. So our customers are number one, but our employees are 1A.
Yeah, that's really good. I like that because if you've got great employees, you're going to have great leadership. If you don't have great employees, it's because you don't have great leadership.
It's
And
true.
as harsh as that sounds, I mean, it really is a fact. When you look at a company, you follow it up to see why things aren't going right or why they are going right. And what do you do? What I really loved is you're still on the communication part, but this time it's with your customer. You're listening. You're listening to what they are saying. And sometimes you have to listen to how they're saying it because maybe they're still frustrated.
Mhm.
So, they're a little upset. Or maybe they're just like, I have no idea how to fix this situation, so I don't know how to tell you what went wrong, you know, and there's where that great communication comes into effect. Let's talk about it. Let's go through the steps. Where was it that you noticed something wasn't first right? Or maybe it's, tell me what happened. Take me from when my employee got there. Was it bad from the very beginning? Or what happened? And then you assess it. You break it down, you find out what it is. Because like you said, you can't correct the situation, you can't fix the problem if you don't know what it is in the first place and you don't know where it fits into the whole scheme of things of how things were done.
Yeah, and our employees understand that we're going to get involved to that degree. We may send a manager out to the house. I may go out to the house, and the employee need not fear unless this has become a recurring kind of a situation. But it's a learning experience for all of us, including the employee. So until somebody really screws up repeatedly, we get the employee to also listen because they're not operating from a position of fear.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. And I like that, not operating from a position of fear, because some leaders think their employees need to be afraid of them. Because if they're afraid of me, then they're going to make sure they do it right. But that's not necessarily true, is it?
No, there's a chapter in the book called "Don't Forget Your 2x4" that deals with that. And I think you have to have a little bit of fear. I think employees have to have a little bit of fear, or sometimes they get out of hand. But the imposition of discipline is less effective than the fear of discipline, in my opinion. So as long as employees know that there's a point beyond which I cannot be pushed, or their supervisor cannot be pushed, they normally will keep it between the lines. It's
Okay,
somebody that doesn't have that gear that can be pushed around as a leader. And that's,
right.
that's a bad leader. You asked for other things. Fear, we're talking about fear. And fear on the part of a leader is an absolute deal killer. A fearful leader does not make decisions, or makes poor decisions, or procrastinates, and gets themselves in all kinds of situations. And then well, I would say proactivity. Good leaders are always proactive. Poor
Right.
leaders are reactive. You're either going to make something happen, or you're going to respond poorly to what happens because you didn't take care of your leadership business. And then the last thing is gathering information or pursuing knowledge. That I was very lucky that I got that lesson when I was 24 years old from a boss of mine who said, you need to start reading about business, and you need to read 5 periodicals a week, and you need to read the Wall Street Journal every day. Because he
Wow.
recognized that my business knowledge was very shallow at that point in my life. Well, I have continued that for 52 years. I read daily on a variety of subjects. I was not a reader before I got that advice, and I'm so glad he gave it to me when he did. But great leaders understand people, they understand how they think, they understand the world, they understand their place in the world. And the more information you have, the more effective you can be at leading and influencing people.
I love that. That's just great. And I see that time is up on your porch.
Well, I'm sorry.
We need to talk about this more, but this is really great information. Thank you, Rich, so much for sharing it with us. I got a lot out of it myself even. So tell us again where we can find you.
The website is growingyourown.net. My email is rich@growingyourown.net.
All right, great. Thank you so much for being here, and thank you, our audience, for being here. And I really hope this gave you a lot of gold nuggets, great insights. And if it did, be sure and share it with others and let us know what you thought about it. And we'll see you next time on Wisdom on the Front Porch.
Thank you, my front porch friends and neighbors, for pulling up a chair with me and my guest today on Wisdom on the Front Porch. Now, if you've got value from this conversation, would you do me a favor? Leave a quick review, then share it with someone you know who could use some inspiration. It helps more friends find their seat on the porch. And hey, make sure you're subscribed so you never miss what's next. Until then, keep the porch light on for new wisdom every time you show up. Your seat's always here for you on the porch.